August 2019. The President of the United States offers to buy Greenland. The world laughs. Denmark says no. The media calls it absurd. For years later, China controls 90% of the world's rare earth processing. Russia plants a flag on the Arctic seabed, and Greenland sits directly in the middle. The ice is melting faster than any model predicted. Shipping routes that didn't exist a decade ago now cut 40% off the distance between Asia and Europe. Greenland isn't a frozen rock, it's a choke point. And whoever controls it controls three oceans, the shortest missile path between superpowers and the minerals that run modern civilization. The offer wasn't a joke. It was the first public admission of something the Pentagon has known for 70 years. They can't afford to lose it. Greenland holds an estimated 38.5 million tons of rare earth oxides, more than any territory on Earth. These aren't luxury materials. Rare earths build F-35 fighter jets, Patriot missile systems, wind turbines, smartphones, MRI machines. Every piece of advanced technology depends on 17 elements most people have never heard of. Right now, China processes 90% of global supply. The US produces less than 12%. If Beijing cuts access, every defense contractor, every tech company, every green energy project in the West goes dark. This already happened once. In 2010, China restricted rare earth exports to Japan during a territorial dispute. Prices spiked 750% in 6 months. Industries froze. The Pentagon calls this resource coercion. Wall Street calls it leverage. Greenland has the deposits. China has the processing infrastructure. And the US has a military base it can't abandon. Thule Air Base sits 750 miles from the North Pole. It's been operational since 1943. The base tracks every missile launched in the Northern Hemisphere. It monitors Russian submarines. It anchors the U.S. Ballistic Missile Early Warning System. Lose Greenland, lose 7 minutes of warning time before impact. Denmark technically owns Greenland, but Denmark doesn't control its defense. The U.S. does, under a 1951 treaty. That treaty assumes Denmark remains stable, Western-aligned, and solvent. It assumes Greenland stays undeveloped. Both assumptions are breaking. Greenland has 57,000 people and a GDP smaller than a mid-sized American suburb. Its government runs on Danish subsidies, about $600 million a year, roughly half its budget. But Greenland wants independence, and independence requires revenue. Revenue means mining. Mining means foreign investment. And the only countries willing to finance Arctic extraction at scale are China and Russia. In 2016, a Chinese company attempted to buy an abandoned naval base in Greenland. The U.S. pressured Denmark to block it. In 2018, China offered to finance 3 airports across Greenland. The U.S. offered counterfinancing to kill the deal. In 2019, a Chinese mining firm secured licenses for rare earth exploration in southern Greenland. The project is still active. Greenland's government isn't pro-China. It's pro-sovereignty, and sovereignty costs money. The U.S. keeps blocking deals but doesn't replace the revenue. Denmark keeps paying subsidies but doesn't want Greenland independent. China keeps investing because it doesn't need permission, just patience. The Arctic ice sheet is disappearing at 13% per decade. By 2040, the Northern Sea route will be navigable year-round. This route connects Shanghai to Rotterdam in 20 days instead of 34. It bypasses the Suez Canal, the Strait of Malacca, the Indian Ocean, every choke point the U.S. Navy controls. Russia is already militarizing it. 40 new icebreakers, 13 airfields, nuclear-powered radar stations along the route. China calls it the Polar Silk Road. It's spending billions on Arctic infrastructure, research stations, and shipping partnerships. The U.S. has 2 functional icebreakers. Russia has more than 40. If the Arctic becomes the primary shipping corridor, the U.S. loses its ability to enforce sanctions, blockade rivals, or control global trade flows. Greenland sits at the gateway. Nobody thinks the U.S. will invade Greenland. That's not how this works anymore. But there are other mechanisms. Debt relief, infrastructure investment, defense partnerships that make independence economically viable. Greenland doesn't need to become a U.S. state. It just needs to stay out of Beijing's orbit. The U.S. offered to buy Greenland in 1867, again in 1946. Both times, Denmark refused. In 1946, The offer was $100 million in gold, adjusted for inflation, over $1.5 billion. Truman knew what the Arctic would become. He just miscalculated when. Today, Greenland's government won't sell, but it might lease. It might partner. It might take an offer Denmark can't match. Because the alternative is watching Chinese firms build the mines, the ports, and the infrastructure that makes independence possible. And once that's built, it doesn't matter who owns the title. The country with the deepest presence controls the territory. Right now, the US has a military base and a veto. China has mining contracts and a waiting game. Russia has the icebreakers and the route. Greenland has the minerals, the location, and the decision. Whoever controls the Arctic doesn't just dominate a region. They control the supply chains, the shipping lanes, and the early warning systems that define military superiority. The ice isn't coming back. The routes are opening, and the island in the middle isn't for sale, but it's listening to offers.